common problem for me when it comes to setting up my planner for a new period, whether that be a completely new journal or just a new week or month, is having to balance my need for consistency with my constant craving for something new. While one of the things I love about a DIY planner system is that you can change things up when you want to, but as we head into the end of the year, which for a lot of us is a busy season, having too much novelty or too much newness can kind of send our brains into a panic. If we're changing up a lot of different elements at once, at a time when it's even more valuable to have a system you can rely on, this can spell trouble for our productivity and just getting things sorted. Keeping this in mind, when it came to setting up for December, I knew firstly that I wanted to keep things simple for myself, both in terms of the layouts I was using and the materials. I knew I should probably rely on layouts that have worked well for me previously, but I needed to add just enough novelty to make the system still fun. This time around, I decided that that novelty was going to come in the form of decoration rather than the actual page structures and layouts. And while at a first glance the decoration may not seem that new compared to what I've done previously, this is actually something that I would consider outside of my comfort zone. Thinking about the structure of the layout first though, this here is a weekly dashboard for the first week in December, or the first week in cycle 3 of quarter 4 because I do cyclic planning, but we're just gonna call it December. This is a layout that I consider to be tried and true for me. It has 4 main sections, those being a priorities list for the week, a meal plan, a general task list, and a small routine or habit tracker. I like to think of my weekly dashboards as very modular systems, so I have these separate and distinct sections that I can move around, adjust the sizing of them, adjust the positioning, and thus get a little bit of a difference between each of my weekly setups without actually having to reinvent the whole thing every time. While that has remained pretty similar to what I've done previously, as mentioned, that novelty factor is really coming from the decoration. Over the past few months in my journal, what I've mainly been tending towards when it comes to decorative pieces are scrapbooking papers and memo pads combined with PET stickers. These PET stickers typically come on quite a long roll, so I have heaps of different designs and a lot of repeats, which often means I don't have to be quite so selective in terms of how many I put down on any layout or where they get positioned, because I have something like 20 or more elements that I could pick from, and then I have 6 repeats of each of them. This time around though, I was using a sticker set that comes with 2 sheets with 9 stickers on each of them and a set of 4 washi tapes. I did also combine this with some scrapbooking paper, so I had a little bit of familiarity there. But when it came to those stickers in particular, when you only have 9 designs and 2 sheets, so 18 stickers, and you're planning on setting up 16 spreads, that doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room for having multiple stickers on one page if you want there to be consistency throughout all of those layouts, and have all of those layouts with some kind of sticker decoration. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of apprehensive going into this setup, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna feel too restricted, I can't put multiple stickers down on the page, which I know, to some people, sounds absolutely ridiculous. And sure, it probably kind of is. But one of the things I know about myself is that if I like the way my planner looks, I'm much more likely to use it. And we are headed into a season where using my planner is of the utmost importance. There's a lot of stuff going on. I need to make sure I'm getting in here, actually writing stuff down, actually checking it off after I've done the thing. And if using stickers is going to incentivize me to do that, heck to the yes, I'm going to be using stickers. Despite my concerns though, I actually found the challenge to be kind of fun. It also meant being a little more intentional about the placement of my washi tapes and building up layers of those in clusters. And although I don't think that this is going to be a style I gravitate towards often, because I do still like the flexibility of having a lot of different elements to work with and having multiple repeats, I think it turned out pretty well, and I enjoyed trying something a little different. It at least scratched that itch that I had for novelty, without being so completely unfamiliar that it sent my brain into a panic. Plus, it also means that in terms of functionality, these layouts are still going to be familiar to me. In terms of timing, this first weekly dashboard took about 10 minutes, with that time definitely being reduced because of the familiarity with the functional parts, and in having less supplies to pick and choose from when it came to decoration, that probably sped me up too. We already know that I'm an overthinker when it comes to planning and setting up my journals, but one of the things that I do like to think about, especially when you're getting into periods where your available time is going to be a bit more limited, is how can I make getting into into here easier? How can I make the decoration faster to set up? Do I even want to use decoration? For me, the answer is always yes when it comes to decoration, because if I like the way things look, I'm more likely to actually use them. And one of the favors that I'm doing here for my future self is pre-decorating the spaces I'm going to have for my daily logs. My daily logs take a build as you go kind of model, so just putting in a header for the current day, writing out everything I need to do, and then come the end of that day, putting in the header for the next day directly underneath this. It means that there's usually not any wasted space on my daily log pages, which I personally very much appreciate, especially in this notebook, which is a B6, which means that not only does it have fewer pages than I typically use, but the real estate on those pages is smaller as well. For that reason, I don't heavily decorate my daily log spaces. I really just kind of focus that decoration into the corners of the page and leave the rest of the spread open for all of those tasks that I'm going to write down. As can probably be expected, the time taken to do this isn't huge. It took about 3 minutes to do this spread, but that's also 3 minutes that Future Jess doesn't have to spend. And also Future Jess doesn't have to get all the materials out again to do that decoration. Wherever possible for December, I have gone and pre-set up or pre-decorated the pages, just so that Future Jess doesn't have to worry about it, because she's going to have plenty of other things to worry about. Flipping over though, I have some more space for daily logging, this time with second line highlights, because initially I was thinking I could fill the entire page with the second line highlights and then I wouldn't have to do that in December, kind of just saving Future Jess some time. But then I remembered that I do like to have gaps anywhere I put in a header, and I don't necessarily know ahead of time where I'm going to need a header. So I've at least got the sizings in here for where I'm going to be putting those highlights, but I'm not going to go and fill the rest of the page with it. On to the next spread though, this is where we're going to be setting up for week 2. As mentioned, when it comes to my weekly dashboards, I think of these as modular. So I'm going to have the same modules, I'll still have those 4 sections, but the placement of them, maybe the sizing of them, is a little different from week to week. Not only does this give me a little bit of that extra novelty factor, because I don't end up with layouts that look exactly the same every single time, but it also means that I can adjust the sections so that they make sense for the week that they fall in. For instance, if I have a week where I know I'm going to have heaps of things to do, and that I'm going to want to have a space in advance to write all those things down, maybe that weekly dashboard needs a larger task list. On the other hand, if I have a week that I know is going to be busy, but it's not going to be busy in the sense of write things down on a task list type deal, on those weeks I won't include as big a task list section. So for instance, on the week of Christmas, where I'm going to have a lot of kind of family time and hopefully leisure time and stuff like that, my week will definitely be filled with things. I have things scheduled, but they aren't things that need task list space. As we set up week 2 here though, that is definitely not the case. I already know that this one is going to be a busy one, so I'm giving myself a very large space for both my priorities list, which is for action steps for my goals and projects, and also one for a task list. This is just for general stuff that falls outside of goals and projects, though sometimes, if I'm not careful, I do end up putting my goal action steps on there as well. As for my meal plan, one of the changes that I made in November is rather than listing out a meal for every single meal, so for instance writing down breakfast, lunch and dinner for Monday, breakfast, lunch and dinner for Tuesday, I instead decided to transition this into an Alistair method, mainly as a way to save myself some time. And that's because I quite often have the exact same thing for breakfast and lunch every day of the week, so rather than having to write overnight oats 7 times, I can just write it in once and cross it off underneath all of the relevant columns for the relevant days, which, given the fact that I have it every day, is just 7 little crosses. But it takes significantly less time to draw 7 little crosses compared to writing overnight oats 7 times. It's just a little way to save myself time, but honestly I feel like that's kind of what this setup is about. It's a combination of these smaller choices that I'm making to help me get my setup done in a more timely manner. On that note, I would love to hear what kind of time-saving tricks you like to use when it comes to planning in your journal. This could be a time saver for the setup process or the actual planning itself. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and also go and make sure to read the ones from other people, because the members of our community have absolutely excellent ideas and I want you to poach them. This one also took me about 10 minutes to set up, and I think that of the weekly layouts we have in this video, this one was my favorite, though I do think I need to add just a little something next to the week 2 header because I'm allergic to white space. But following this, I also set up some spreads for any of the daily logs that I have for week 2, but come the end of week 2, then we will be at the mid-cycle point. In using cyclic planning, which is planning on 4-week blocks rather than monthly blocks, one of the things that I like to do is a mid-cycle check-in. This is a time to consider the progress that I'm making sticking with my goals, if there's anything I've been neglecting that I need to recommit to, acknowledge any of the challenges I've been facing, and my responses to those challenges. And one thing in particular that I added to this semi-recently, like within the last few months, is having a spot to note down what my routines were and how frequently I successfully completed them. Oftentimes when it comes to routine and habit tracking, we either 1. Use the actual tracking process to hold us accountable to getting the thing done, or 2. Just fill it in because we've got the layout there. And this isn't me trying to call anybody out, except for probably previous me, because I personally don't find that routine trackers in my journal really hold me that accountable to getting my habits done. What's more important for me is paying attention to how many times I have successfully completed the habit, and using that data to consider if there's anything I can change or adjust that'll make getting that habit done easier. The first step of that is just noting my completion percentage, or in this case, it's just writing down how many days out of the previous 14 days did I successfully do the thing. For instance, if I have one routine that I have successfully completed 14 out of 14 days, maybe I don't even need to have that on my tracker anymore. Maybe it's not something I actively need to keep track of because it's just happening. Or there could be some other kind of support or system that I've built around doing that thing that is making it more likely to get completed. On the other hand, if there's a habit that I've been trying to build and it has a really low completion percentage, like maybe less than 7 out of the last 14 days, provided it's something that I am supposedly trying to do on a daily basis, then that low number indicates that maybe there's something about the habit that isn't quite right. Maybe I've aimed too high with it, I've set the bar too high, or maybe I haven't been considerate enough of the kind of external things that would support that habit. And possibly I need to go and pay a little more attention to those to set myself up for success. Notably, just writing down the number is only the first step, but by having a spot to write down that number, it makes me be more mindful about how I'm actually going with my habits, as opposed to just checking a box to say that I did or didn't do the thing and then never using that data again. Of course, there are other sections on my mid-cycle check-in, so we have a spot for wins or kind of like accomplishments, a spot for progress or things that I've done towards a goal, but it doesn't quite feel like a final accomplishment, challenges for things I'm finding difficult, and responses for how I personally responded to facing those challenges. Not in a way to shame myself because I haven't responded in the best way possible or anything, but more so just acknowledging what I have or maybe haven't done in response to a challenge. I also went and added a little bit of decoration on the right hand side because this is going to be a space for more daily logs, or possibly a brain dump or a mind unwind. But in terms of timing, this one took about 9 minutes to set up. After the mid-cycle review, we are on to week 3, and if the layout for week 2 was my favourite from the bunch, I think that my layout for week 3 is probably my least favourite. And that's because I don't think I got the balancing of the elements on the page quite right. One of the things that I quite liked about the tape that I'm using at the bottom of the left-hand page is that because it is a bookshelf, you can stack the tape on top of itself to create multiple layers of a shelf. And I liked that the repeat was long enough that I could get a variety of elements shown across those two shelves. But this did make that space on the layout kind of visually heavy, and I don't think I balanced it well when it came to the other side of the layout. When it comes to balancing elements across any page or spread, most of the time what I will do is that for any spot on one page that has visual heaviness, I will do the exact opposite on the other page. So putting those shelves on the bottom of the left-hand page, that would mean that I'd want something with decent visual weight on the top of the right-hand page. And while I did put decoration there, I just don't think that it balances as nicely as it could. At the end of the day, it's not going to be that big of a deal. I'm only going to use this spread for 1 week, and it doesn't bother me so much that I'm at a risk of not using it, because there certainly have been layouts that I have set up previously where initially I thought, oh, this is gonna be fine, I can just grin and bear it, I'll just struggle through, and then I completely neglected the layout. Typically that's gonna be more so of a problem if the layout is something that you're in theory going to use over a longer span of time. This one just being used for a week isn't really the end of the world, but when you start edging up to say a monthly layout or maybe a quarterly or annual layout, liking the way it looks, liking the way you use it, that is going to have real impacts on whether that thing gets used. In week 3 though, I still foresee that I'm probably going to have a lot going on for myself, so I included a large task list, a large priority section, whereas the routines tracker and the meal space stay roughly the same, or in the case of the routines tracker, exactly the same, because I wanted to give myself a consistent number of spots on that tracker across the entire of the month. Mainly because when it comes to counting up how many instances of each routine I have successfully completed, you kinda have to track the same routine on every single week to make it so that the data actually means something. This layout, unsurprisingly, took about 10 minutes to set up as well, again because the structure of the layout is quite familiar and the decorative elements weren't too cumbersome or time intensive. And following this one, I did include 2 full spreads for daily logs. I'm thinking I might have included a little bit too much space for daily logs, but I certainly don't want to run out of space, so I'd rather have a little extra than not enough. But after this, I was going to need a space for week 4. Now, what I've been doing in my November and October setups is also including dedicated collection pages for particular projects or goals that I'm working on. When it comes to December, I don't think I'm going to have any super specific projects or project-like goals. It'll more so be those goals that you kind of have to put in a consistent application over longer periods of time, so mainly ones that rely on routine building or weekly tasks. That kind of information is already captured on my weekly dashboards, so I don't need to have another separate dedicated collection to remind me to track my food intake or drink my water, because that's already going to be captured here. This is certainly something that I valued in my November pages, but for the month ahead, I don't really foresee myself needing it. I figure by week 4, I probably won't have quite as many tasks and priorities to tackle though, mainly because we're starting to approach the Christmas period, so hopefully my work will kind of be wrapping up or winding down a little bit, and I'm kind of keen to dedicate that week to tackling my TBR, or list of things to be read. I think it would be nice to carve out some intentional time to just have some cozy reading dates with myself, and that's also in part why I went with the theme that I did. More often than not when it comes to December, I do usually lean a little bit more into Christmas themes, but I thought that having some bookish inspired decoration would kind of incentivize me even more to get in and have those cozy reading times, or at least as cozy as you can be when you're heading into summer months. In looking ahead to next year though, one of the things I'm thinking about when it comes to my monthly plan with me videos is making them a bit more focused on the planning rather than the setup. I'm not necessarily too sure how this would look, but more so I want to really showcase how I'm using my planner to help me get things done, to help plan out my projects and goals. So if that's something that you'd be curious to see more of, please do let me know. Notably, I want to be putting out videos that you have an interest in, so if that's something that you'd like to see more of, I would love to hear it. If you're watching on a device that isn't very easy to comment though, just give this video a thumbs up and I'll use that as you kind of like casting your vote. Though I suppose even if you can comment, you could give the video a thumbs up if that sounds like something you'd like to see. In the same way that I made the priorities and task list on this spread a little bit smaller compared to the previous weeks, I also don't foresee me needing a lot of space for daily logs, so I've set up one spread for that, but then after this we have only a couple more spreads, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a half until we get to the end of the notebook. In there I know I'm going to have spaces set up for reset week and planning that. So not only the kind of weekly dashboard for reset week, but also the reset week specific plans. But flipping back so that we can flip through, I know that future Jess is so very much going to appreciate having all of these things pre-set up and pretty much ready to use. Yes, she will still have to go and put in the second line highlights for those daily logs, but at least the spaces for each of those are already measured out to save her just a little bit of time. As mentioned, I do think I might have included a little bit too much space in terms of those daily log sections, because typically when life gets busy, I do start to neglect my planner. And of course, in heading into what is often a busy season for a lot of people, don't be too hard on yourself if you find you're not picking up or opening your planner either. As long as you're getting the stuff done that you need to and managing life, that's what really matters. While in this setup, I aim to go fairly simple, with just having the weekly dashboards, daily log spaces, and that mid-cycle check-in. Last month, I decided to put in a lot more collections dedicated to specific projects. And while these were tailored to my projects and goals, they could be a really good basis for some of yours. If you wanted to see how that setup came together, then this video is the next one to check out. This is also likely the style of system I'll be using in 2026, so effectively a little bit of a sneak peek as to how my system is going to be changing in the new year, so click or tap on that one and I'll see you over there.